2014 is one of the most blue-balling, cock-teasing films I have ever seen. Godzilla doesn't make his first appearance until halfway into the movie. This is the film's namesake, for crying out loud. And then when he finally shows up and fights one of the Mutos, the film literally cuts away to the kid watching it on TV, and then the following morning. What the fuck? Look at this! I did not edit this.
Godzilla 2014's key moment here is how it does these cutaways. Every time Godzilla emerges, Godzilla is suddenly taken out and moved on and gleamed over. They're suppressing him. That's one of the major themes of the movie, and the cinematography and editing expresses this. So the fact that Alastor Hacon starts like geeking out over Godzilla being blue balled consistently, it's not really a good look here already. He's like, "Oh, I didn't edit this, guys. I didn't edit this." And like, of course you didn't edit it. You didn't edit it at all. You don't need to tell us that.
Even then, look at this shot when the soldiers are about to close in on the nuke that's been taken by the female Muto. This is how a nighttime shot is supposed to look. Yes, real life darkness is basically pitch black, but in a film, you need to make concessions so the audience can make out what the fuck is happening. Distant moonlight, dim streetlights, fires, something. Look at how the surrounding fires create ambient light that helps the audience determine what's on screen. It also helps to see when the female Muto approaches because we can then see the silhouette of her leg when it steps into the area. Do you know which movie didn't have opaque as fuck nighttime scenes? Guess.
So, according to Alistair over here, good lighting equals you know, fire making things visible. There's this weird like intermingling praise between good and bad. So like he's like, "Oh well, the movie mostly has bad lighting because it's too dark in the home releases," and puts us a markup against the film, but then suddenly goes, "Oh well, this part is good lighting." But then you don't know it didn't have opaque lighting, and it's like, huh? Where are you going with this? Like, -1 obviously is mostly shot in daytime. Of course, it's not going to be very like hard to see. So I'm confused on what you're trying to get at here.
Honestly, some of the cast could have been condensed so we had a more focused vision. Joe and Ford Brody should have been combined into one character. The same goes for Dr. Ishiro and Dr. Vivian. I had to Google their names, by the way. The military guys, too. Admiral Stenz and Captain Hampton could have just been a single character. The single good character was utterly wasted, and everyone else is just bland. Joe Brody was the only character who had the potential for me to care about. Here's what they should have done instead of killing off his character at the 40-minute mark and wasting Bryan Cranston's time. Erase Ford entirely. Keep the intro where Joe loses his wife to the Muto egg. Jump 15 years into the future and Joe has found a new wife and has helped birth a son. Monarch has contacted him in regards to his experience with the facility 15 years ago. Joe is reluctant, but he goes with Monarch to ensure his wife and son are safe. With Godzilla and the Mutos wreaking havoc on the world, Joe is determined to find a way to keep his new family safe so he doesn't have a repeat of what happened in the nuclear facility in 1999. We saw why Joe is concerned. We feel for him after he lost his first wife, so now we're rooting for him to succeed. -1 did this expertly with Koichi. I'll go into more detail about Koichi later.
This is insane. So you have some wild things going on this guy's head. Ford Brody and Joe Brody, two separate characters with two separate goals, two separate ideologies, how they feel for each other, should suddenly be combined. So what? We're gonna have a military conspiracy theorist or something? Like I'm like that's not even the point of the movie. And why would you combine Dr. Sarazawa and Dr. Vivienne? The whole point is that Sarazawa is so obsessed with controlling nature and is so focused on his work that in that one scene in the power plant where they're expecting the Muto or whatever, Vivienne's like, "Oh yeah, well, oh, we already got these people. We already rounded them up and stuff like that." Well, he's like, "Oh well, can you go get them for me?" And he's like, "Way too late." Like, why? Why do you think combining these characters is a good idea? This does not make sense. And then right after he starts like going like, "Oh well, if I wrote the movie, it would go like this," and it's in those same vein as that Ford Brody Up from the Depths video. I mean, Joe Brody Up from the Depths video, where it's like, what if Joe Brody was still alive and he teamed up with Sarazawa? And it comes off as like bad fan fiction. Like it doesn't get the point of why Joe Brody had to die. Hey, Alistair then has this small addendum actually that I put up on the screen. It says outstanding acting here, haha. And it's like function as an annoying laugh track, really. But it also is like, oh well, good acting is when characters cry and get emotional, and that's why he cares, I guess. Like, I mean, obviously the nuance is lost on him on why Ford Brody is reserved and such. But it's just funny, just really funny to see. So have that.
The next character I want to talk about from 2014 is Dr. Ishiro. He's kind of just here being a moron. He's supposed to be the naturist guy that says that Godzilla is here to restore balance, but when you look at the amount of damage a fight Godzilla partakes in creates, why would anyone in their right fucking mind want Godzilla or any of these titans alive? He doesn't even provide any real alternatives to nuking the shit out of all of them. He doesn't say, it won't work, or you'll only make them stronger. He just says, no, please don't do it.
I don't think Alistair can have like a sense of humor because genuinely the lines that Sarazawa puts out are comedy gold. It's supposed to be like this funny camp thing where Sarazawa is very naive and really doesn't have an idea what he's kind of just talking about. Like he believes Godzilla's like, oh yeah, he's gonna bring balance, but Godzilla's really not here to bring balance. Like he's here to kill the monsters, and it's very ambiguous to why. But the big joke in this movie, which is one of the many jokes in this movie, it's a pretty kind of funny movie, is when Sarazawa is not in a room and these guys are talking, and then Sarazawa walks in a room and goes, he's hunting. Like, it's so funny. Like, it's supposed to be in this same sense that, like, oh, this guy's not very bright. I mean, he's not the brightest. I mean, he's researched Godzilla for years, and he's like, oh, well, he's an alpha predator, guys. But it's much more ambiguous than that. So yeah, of course Sarazawa is just gonna go, no, please don't, because that's what it literally is. That's characterization. I don't know how Alistair can't see this, considering he writes books himself.
Then when Godzilla appears, there's a shot of the kids looking on in awe, but Sam looks like he's ecstatic to see Godzilla. It's like
I'm glad amongst his whinging that I managed to cut out a lot of footage of that complaining to talk about this moment. Hey, remember the scene where he looks at the screen and goes, dinosaur? That's basically him recognizing the dinosaur on television. He sees Godzilla as a, dinosaur, which Godzilla is a dinosaur, and also a friend. Also, Godzilla saves them from military fire. So hopefully that helps, but this is basic characterization stuff. I am still convinced that maybe Alistair doesn't know anything about characterization.
I know this isn't related to the writing, but I have no other chance to talk about it. The music in the American movies is painfully boring and uninspired. Of course, I can't play any of it, but the Godzilla suite from the Japanese films is iconic and really embodies the large, oppressive, and destructive nature of Godzilla. In 2014, they gave Godzilla this generic off-brand superhero theme that I can't even remember 5 seconds after hearing it. It's almost as if Godzilla's theme is too dark and villainous, so they had to come up with some generic as fuck superhero theme to replace it because this new Godzilla is supposed to be a good guy or something.
He doesn't really talk anything about the soundtrack, but says the American one bad, Japanese one good, and Godzilla's theme cannot be reinterpreted into a heroic thing. The things that Godzilla's theme is so unique, and it's interesting, right? Because it allows itself to be both framed as a good thing and a bad thing. Godzilla's theme in other movies, right, is usually like very straightforward. When they make an original Godzilla theme, they have to like, make it so that, oh yeah, well, the theme could be interpreted as both a negative thing and a heroic thing. Like that's how it is. Like Godzilla's theme it sounds triumphant, but it also sounds ominous and powerful. And that's how every single Godzilla theme, original and the new ones, have always been. So I am like a little confused to what he's getting at here beyond this idea that America bad and Japan good, and I don't get why Godzilla is a hero in the monster verse.
Godzilla. I don't like this version of Godzilla. What they decided to do in this universe is basically make Godzilla a Doomslayer esque anti hero who is here to restore balance in the world. Instead of Godzilla just being the de facto bad guy in 2014 and his relationship with the humans getting more complicated as time goes on, they just decided to jump to the easiest and laziest solution available. Make him fight two other monsters in this film, the male and female Mutos. We could have gotten a movie where humanity must prove to Godzilla that they can coexist while Godzilla can find compassion for a single human who could represent the best of our species. But nah, big monster fight other big monster.
Alistair puts so much thought into evil Godzilla stuff, as you could tell, like the implication of Godzilla being like a destroyer and stuff, and he has to find compassion in one human who represents the quote unquote best of their species, which makes no sense and is kind of very reactionary. And he puts so much thought into this, right? But then in Godzilla 2014, when he sees the idea of Godzilla fighting other monsters, he doesn't put thought into this. He doesn't put in what the Mutos represent, what Godzilla represents, what the people around it represent, like the political climate or anything. He just goes, nah, big monster fight other big monster, and calls it a day. He doesn't want to put thought into that, because if he does, then he'll like figure out that, oh, wait, evil Godzilla is not the only Godzilla. And that's what the video seems to be heading towards, this path where evil Godzilla, villainous Godzilla, is the only Godzilla. So it's this weird slant that slowly increases over the course of the movie. Not movie, sorry, video, which it basically is a movie at this point.
King of the Monsters doubles down on this premise. These movies also muddy the water of this already frail interpretation of this character by pretending he's some great savior when he makes no attempt to mitigate the death and destruction his fights indirectly cause. When he kills the male Muto, Godzilla slams it into a building, causing it to collapse and killing any possible survivors inside and around the building. These films treat the destruction that Godzilla causes as an exclamation point to what I'm supposed to believe is an exciting story, while the Japanese treat Godzilla's destruction as a tragedy that you don't really want to watch but need to see how it ends.
Okay, this is just insanely Orientalist and kind of dumb. Obviously, there is the obvious 9/11 commercialization that permeates a majority of American kaiju films and such. But I don't get this, right? He's going, well. He's going, well, the Japanese, they're at serene. They're at peace with themselves. They make real movies of destruction. And when they show destruction, they show it with intimacy, with reality. Meanwhile, in America, they're all just a bunch of violent warmongers and such. All they want is destruction. And it comes off as that, right? And it just it kind of stupid to watch. When I re-recorded this part, I was gonna talk about just 9/11's commercialization in general, how it led to this point, but that's long and nobody cares. So instead, I'm just gonna say this: is 9/11 allowed big monster to blow up big buildings because it was mythologized within our culture. Now people just really want to see cities get vaporized. It's not like a whole main thing across the world. 9/11 did not control this, but it's specific in American sense. You have a gazillion 9/11s happening. But in other places, you won't say that, oh yeah, there's a gazillion Hiroshimas happening, because one, that's insanely offensive, and two, Godzilla is not literally a nuclear bomb. He's a victim of the nukes.
Moving on, Godzilla's combat prowess can best be summed up in this sentiment. Godzilla is a punk bitch in these American movies. He's nowhere near as formidable as his Japanese counterpart. In 2014, the male Muto was approximately 90 meters tall, and MonsterVerse Godzilla is about 119 meters tall, over double the size of -1 Godzilla. Yet for some reason, he can't just put the male Muto down like a sick dog. When he finally does, a building collapses on him and he ends up being winded. Winded! You smash buildings on the regular, but the one time the building smashes back, you're ready to tap out?
What a pathetic bitch.
There are
Just what? Godzilla is not strong enough. Why isn't Godzilla instantly kill the Mutos? What the hell, movie? You're not doing it right. If I wrote this movie, Godzilla would be giving Muto crazy back shots. And you wouldn't understand, buddy. You get the point at this point. It's stupid. What is this? Like, he's going from, like, oh, well, Godzilla destroys too much to why can't Godzilla just instantly kill the Mutos? He's a punk bitch, guys. Just understand that Godzilla shouldn't be challenged in any of his movies. He should be 100%, 100%, gazillion percent unstoppable.
I am now going to gush about -1.
We're not doing that. All I gotta say is that this is not actually about Japanese Godzilla movies being good. This is about -1 being good. That's literally it. I'm sorry to tell you. We're moving on. Like, we're gonna just move on. I'll cut out all the glazing session. If you want to watch it yourself, it's in there. But this video, as long as it is,
Christ. But compared to the masterful work at play here, I can live with these issues. There's so much I didn't even mention, such as the masterful implementation of the commentary on the Japanese government's cheapening of lives during World War II.
critique here that is being posited of the movie in the movie is that they're not doing defense well enough. The government specifically, they do this weird thing where the American government and the just magically disappears, so they can frame it up as like, oh yeah, well, the Japanese government's weak and pathetic. Why couldn't they defend us or whatever? And the American government wouldn't leave when a U.S. warship gets destroyed, but it's a whatever thing in -1 because what it does is that it shifts the blame onto the Japanese government. The reality is that both the Japanese government and the people are responsible for agreeing and supporting this imperialist stance. And obviously, not every single Japanese person has done this, but the point remains here that, oh yeah, well, we need to destroy Godzilla to preserve our beautiful nation. It's nationalism and jingoism. And then, you remember the whole, they need to build weapons so we can stay alive or whatever. You remember that? Well, you see, want to know the flip side of that? Imperialism, jingoism, blowing people up better. Wow. I wonder why it doesn't function well as a critique and looks more like an endorsement for imperialism.
I feel like I was spoiled rotten by -1 being the very first Godzilla film I've ever seen. 2014 was a thin, hollow film that had nothing of substance to say or portray within its characters. King of the Monsters was an abomination with horrid character writing and dogshit plot writing. And while I did like Shin Godzilla, it is a very political and plot-driven film that cares less about character writing and storytelling and more about conveying a message about government response or lack thereof. -1 felt like a Japanese movie dressed up in a good Western movie's clothes. The production quality is out of this world. There are small details that I adore, such as the fact that Noriko and Koichi sleep with a curtain between each other because the two are not married.
Alastor treats -1 like it's a stroke of genius. The thing about this whole video is that Alastor doesn't particularly say anything of note. He doesn't critique anything that much. The closest he gets to anything like that is lighting. He doesn't employ any techniques, doesn't employ philosophy, doesn't employ anything. Instead, what he employs is how do I say it? -1 praise. And it permeates the video, no? Like, it literally dominates the entire video. The reality is that he doesn't have a problem with Godzilla. He has a problem with the fact that they're all not like Japanese films, specifically -1. He doesn't actually care about any Godzilla movies beyond -1, but the point still stands. He is waiting for the perfect -1 film. That's all he wants. So he's going to dismiss every other movie, and then he goes like, "Oh well, -1's a stroke of genius. They had a curtain between the two characters. Wow, genius. It's stupid. It's so dumb."
As I explained in my addendum to Star Wars Cannot Grow Up, this is slop. Unchallenging, mindless, formless, thoughtless, gussied up slop. And that's all it will ever be. They will never make a film on the level of -1 for one simple reason. While -1 got me to care about thousands of lives, the Monsterverse can't even get me to care about one.
I just don't know what to say. what he's doing is treating -1 as this messianic miracle figure that suddenly gave him enlightenment to Godzilla movies, and that any Godzilla movie that tries to reach -1 is not going to reach it because -1 is flawless. But also, the strangest part before this video ends is about his mentioning of how -1 suddenly made him have morals and ethic values. Like, oh, well, -1 made me care about thousands of people. But Monsterverse couldn't have made me care about one. He didn't even phrase it like, oh, yeah, well, I cared about people, but -1 showed me that you could care more for people or something on those lines. Instead, it's like, oh, well, actually, I didn't care about anyone until -1 came around. It's weird. It is dumb. I don't know how to say this any more clearly. This video is not actually talking about the problem with Godzilla, but it's talking about how Godzilla movies are not -1, so they're bad. And it's amazing how I remember scrolling down in that comment section of this video. Someone said that someone told me that they should make a response video on this, but then I saw this and I agreed with it. And like, how do you agree with this? Half of the video is literally just summarizing a plot and complaining about how Godzilla can't coexist with people. Like, that's it. I don't know what to tell you, but this video is bad, very misfocused. And that's it of that very shallow and onanistic video. Now we can move on to greener pastures. Godzilla NES creepypasta script is being worked on as we basically are speaking. And you're probably watching this video. It'll probably take a while till it's done, and you know, all that stuff. I'll be working on the Blackaroonie Kate Randa response video eventually after the Godzilla NES creepypasta video, and that's pretty much it. I would like to thank the requester for requesting this video. So if you have a video you want me to respond to or you particularly want my take on, go ahead. I'll respond to it or talk about it. If you want to talk to me anywhere, you could talk to me in the comment replies pretty much. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching and have a good day or good night wherever you are. So, bye.